Paul Foster Bell.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Sir, it's a pleasure to rise and take a call on the Parole Amendment Bill in this third reading debate. Can I begin by paying tribute to the Honourable Amy Adams, the Minister of Justice, who is currently shepherding this bill through Parliament, but also her predecessor, Judith Collins, who introduced this as Justice Minister. Sir, I believe passionately in redemption and rehabilitation and the power of education, of drug and alcohol treatment, of literacy training in prisons to be able to transform the lives of those who have offended very gravely against society. Not everyone can be fully rehabilitated. There are those offenders, and this government is progressing other legislation to deal with those who are not able to be treated for the offending that they do perpetrate, particularly on the most vulnerable in our society. But I'm proud to be part of a government, sir, which through this bill, along with other pieces of legislation, such as the 1,000-page Judicature Act, is reforming some issues at the heart of our justice system to make sure we do have a system that protects New Zealanders, that makes New Zealand a safer place, that keeps our communities safe, that reduces crime, but does also deal with the issue of the people who have been incarcerated and what becomes of them when they're released back in society, as inevitably the vast majority of them will be. Sir, may I congratulate opposition members for agreeing with certainly the Select Committee deliberations and the findings that came out of those hearings. And in particular, there were a couple of pieces that I picked up in the previous speeches that I thought I would touch on. Poto Williams said that helping offenders work through their issues, in part through an extension of the time of the process that they might go through, was a positive part of this bill, and I couldn't agree more. There are occasions when an extra year to work through courses such as the drug and alcohol rehabilitation, funding for which has been quadrupled by this government, will have a positive impact on that offender's likelihood of reoffending when released. I also agree entirely with Chris Whāwhoi when he said that this balances the need to maintain rights for the victims, but also a focus on the rehabilitation of the offenders. But there are a specific few instances that I'd like to reference in the brief time I have, sir. I didn't sit on the Law and Order Committee, but I had the privilege of sitting in on one of the hearings of evidence in Auckland, in which we heard very moving and sobering evidence from a very brave woman, who I'm not going to name in the House, but who was the victim of a double murder in which both of her parents were killed by two offenders. And I was impressed with the view that this particular victim of crime, of the most serious crime you can imagine, took, in that she felt that one of the offenders had made significant inroads into being rehabilitated. She felt that that offender was in fact led by the other one, and when the victim themselves feel that the person who offended against them poses no longer such the risk to society, it's good to see legislation giving that person an ability to have their voice heard at an appropriate time and in a convenient and sensitive manner. Similarly, this particular victim felt that the other offender, who was the ringleader in this particular double murder, hadn't been rehabilitated. So it is absolutely right and proper that instead of being hauled before a parole committee, which is a very upsetting experience for victims of these serious crimes, on an annual basis, that the board has the ability to determine that in fact no positive change has been made by that particular offender, that there is still a significant risk of reoffending, and therefore that offender will have a 2-year delay before they're reheard by the parole board. Sir, also, I look at some of the technical changes in this bill, including the ability to have hearings conducted by video or phone link. This is a sensible, progressive change in the modern era. Not only will it contribute to, as my colleagues on this side of the House have alluded to, a $700,000 reduction in costs, which is savings to the taxpayer that can much be better spent on crime prevention, but also there are safety considerations for corrections officers, police, prison guards and those who deal with offenders in the transport. We're going to keep those staff much safer by greater use of video conferencing. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Paul Brett Hudson, 5-minute call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It's an absolute delight to speak on this